Once the investigation revealed enough evidence was present, the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office issued the criminal complaint. In addition to the criminal charges against Hagan Brown, he has been charged internally for violations of the Milwaukee Police Department's Code of Conduct, and disciplinary proceedings will be forthcoming. Hagan Brown remains in custody and remains suspended from the Milwaukee Police Department. Per state law, his suspension is with pay. Due to the sensitive nature of this investigation, I'll refer you to the criminal complaint for specific details of the alleged crimes. I'll now take questions.
Chief Flynn, the criminal complaint details Joseph Hall, a sergeant that spoke to the defendant within 24 hours of this incident and told him about it. Did he come forward, or was it not until the phone was searched that we found that he was involved?
My understanding is that Sergeant Hall did share this information ultimately with the chain of command. I'm not sure as to the time, but he did share that conversation.
Is there any investigation into him, or?
Yes, there is.
Could you tell us about the, it appears to be 7 or 8 days between the time the allegation was made and when you, at least according to the complaint, talked to Officer Hagan Brown? Was there a delay there, or was it purposeful? What happened?
Well, normally before we talk to someone who's a suspect in a crime, we get as much evidence as we can, and that process was ongoing. We responded to the hospital immediately upon being notified, so by 4 o'clock in the morning or so, the same early morning of the allegations were first made, we were investigating that case, and the next several days were spent assembling enough information to feel that we were in a strong position to conduct an interview.
Chief Lynn, you had said that security was being provided for Officer Hagan Brown back on August 14th, one day after the shooting, that he was kept out of the city. How does the MPD account for how he was able to come back into the city the following night and go out with this alleged victim?
We, I can't account for it. We weren't guarding him. We simply worked with the police association to see that he could be placed in a domicile outside his regular residence, because there were concerns for his safety based on the internet traffic that was swirling about him shortly after the incident.
Was he truthful to you about his location at that time? Because we were here, I think the day after, is August 14th, He told us that he was out of state with relatives. And that happened to be the same night that he was allegedly in this tavern. I mean, was he truthful with the department at that time, or was it just miscommunication or not understanding?
It may have been some of both.
This apparently dates back to end of last year. Could there be even more victims that he's been doing this stuff to?
Well, certainly theoretically there can be, and we would investigate any such allegation. Let's keep in mind that none of these incidents involved individuals who did not know who he was already. Some of these incidents obviously were sexual encounters for money, in which once again there was some sort of transaction underway. So we don't have reason to believe that there were a series of stranger assaults out there. Nothing's come to light, but certainly we would investigate any similar allegation.
Will the men in these other incidents be charged with prostitution as well?
That remains to be seen. Right now they are witnesses, so we'll see as the case progresses with the DA's office.
How does this affect the Selville Smith case?
Well, it doesn't, specifically relate to the case. I'm sure many people will draw a connection. I mean, the issue surrounding that shooting is going to have to be decided on the lawfulness of the shooting in the context of the events in which it occurred, not the character of the individual who did the shooting. And that investigation, obviously, that determination will be made by the DA's office.
Any feelings about at least the allegation that while your officers were in harm's way in Sherman Park on the 14th, that he was in a tavern drinking, sounds like drinking to excess and engaging in unlawful behavior, and commenting on the fact that he could do whatever he wanted without repercussion?
Listen, this is extraordinarily disappointing. These are grave charges. These are charges that go to the heart of our code of conduct, of our oath to protect and serve. They cast a pall over all of us because we recognize that unfortunately too many people will judge the actions and conduct of the many by the excesses of one individual. So certainly this is more than a little distressing, but the members of this police department take their oath seriously. We investigated this case thoroughly. We went where the facts led us and have participated in the drawing up of serious criminal charges. So I'm proud of the professionalism and dedication of our officers that conducted this investigation, and I'm just disappointed that it occurred, and it's a difficult day for us.
What do you say to the people who may become very upset by this? You've already seen some of the social media chatter because you guys follow that kind of stuff. Obviously, people are very concerned about the shooting in the first place, and now you got a guy who is alleged to have been engaged in felonious conduct around the time that this same thing happened, a guy who considered himself above the law.
It's altogether awful. I mean, the fact of the matter is that this individual has revealed his characters in a way that did not come to light during the internal investigation. Excuse me, did not come to light during the pre-hiring investigation, and it's extraordinarily disappointing and grave, and we're treating it as such.
Why don't you just fire him right now?
Well, he has a right to respond to charges. I mean, there is due process in internal investigations as well as in the criminal law. So the charges are being drawn up. He'll have an opportunity to respond to those charges, and then we'll make a determination.
Chief, yeah, I understand that the department was aware of the rap videos that he had created prior to him becoming a sworn officer. At the time he was a police aide, that there were concerns about the lyrics, about some of the conduct, about whether that was appropriate for someone to engage in when he was hoping to be a law enforcement officer. And yet he was hired anyway. Can you talk about the process that went, that occurred to determine whether or not this guy was, a gangster, or whether he was just an aspiring musician, or
Well, I'm
what?
sure you'd agree, Colleen, that we're not going to categorize people as gangsters because they like rap music or like to listen to the sort of poetry that is common in rap videos. It is an edgy art form. Lots of things are said in it that may be metaphorical or symbolic or literal, but not literal to the person that's creating those lyrics. So certainly we're not going to disqualify a person because he engages in a rap video. If anything, that would be culturally problematic, as many people participate in this kind of music that don't have criminal intent. So we were aware of it, but we did not develop any information during his background investigation that indicated that he had any connection in an ongoing way with criminal activity.
Chief, will this lead to any new directives from the department to officers regarding what's expected of them if they find themselves on administrative leave?
Well, listen, officers know we don't need a directive to say you don't commit rape. Okay, I don't need a rule that says that, all right? This individual committed a crime. Appears he committed a series of crimes. For those things, he's certainly going to face the possibility of imprisonment. For those things, he's certainly going to face the possibility of the loss of his employment. So my officers, overwhelmingly, off-duty, show themselves to be good neighbors, good parents, good coaches, good scoutmasters, good citizens, and unfortunately some who come to light reveal themselves to be reckless, irresponsible, or sometimes criminal. In all of those cases, this department has shown itself willing and able to conduct thorough investigations and take serious disciplinary action against that conduct. So I don't want to lose sight of what the many are doing because one individual has decided to transgress the law.
Chief, you said that this reveals his character, and Bill Smith's family has said that the department has engaged in a cover-up since Bill Smith's shooting. What do you say to them when they feel like this officer, they've said before, was a dirty cop, and it appears he has committed a series of crimes?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that many of the allegations about him that were made initially and reported in the news turned out to be factually wrong. For example, the news widely reported that they had gone to school together. If you check with the Milwaukee public school system, you find there's no record of that ever having happened at any level of education. So I'm not going to directly respond to their assertions about what this department was doing. I think we're pretty straightforward. There's no cover-up here. An allegation was made. The allegation was investigated. The investigation of that allegation led to the discovery of other crimes not previously alleged, and all of them are being charged. Now, that's a department that I think is demonstrating that it takes integrity seriously, and it takes the conduct of its officers seriously, and doesn't allow their status in this organization to interfere with one moment for us being willing to prosecute and imprison people who commit unlawful conduct.
Is
Chief,
there
did
any
any of these
questions?
adult victims have relationships with the Smith family? There have been long been allegations that somehow that this...
There's no indication that these individuals had any connection to that group. Ashley?
What are the recommended disciplinary charges against the officer? If you're able to speak to that.
Well, first, we give, the notice of charges have to do with violation of our code of conduct. Code of conduct forbids engaging in criminal activity. These are clearly crimes. And so, the individual has an opportunity to respond to those assertions. And we have the right to make a ruling and determination as to the appropriate sanction for those violations.
Had anyone ever asked?
Sorry, in the back.
Has this sexual assault investigation delayed or affected in any way the other investigation into the Wilson shooting?
No, it has no impact. The Department of Justice's Criminal Investigation Division has conducted an investigation. That information is provided to the district attorney. The district attorney is making a determination on the lawfulness of the use of deadly force in the context of which it occurred, not, as I say, the ex post facto or even previous conduct of this individual privately.
Had the department ever investigated any kind of allegation like this about Officer Hagan Brown prior to this August 14th incident?
Now, this all arose out of the investigation of the August 14th incident. There have been no previous allegations or assertions.
And the internal investigation is wrapped up.
The internal investigation is not entirely completed because he's going to have an opportunity to respond to charges. But the internal investigation certainly revealed what we believe to be, probable cause to believe he's committed these crimes.
Where is he currently being held right
He's over at the county, as far as I know, in a special unit.
His mentor is also under internal investigation as well, then?
Sorry?
His mentor is also
That's
under
correct. We
internal
want to get to the
investigation?
bottom of just exactly what that exchange was about.
Is he on duty still, that sergeant?
Yes.
What can you tell us? Do you know anything about the suicide suit that he's wearing and the circumstances that predicated that?
No, I'd refer those questions to them. I mean, obviously, that the circumstances surrounding this issue and Hagan Brown's employment status would make him uniquely vulnerable to external threat and plausibly to the risk of doing harm to himself. But I don't have any specific information.
What was his